So 42 out of the 45 bodies of the victims who died in the horrific bus crash that occurred over the Easter weekend have been identified. The latest update came earlier this week from the Limpopo Health MEC, Phophi, Ramathuba. The MEC also said that further steps will be taken to repatriate the bodies to Botswana. One person survived the accident. Let's now bring in the Botswana government for an update on the families and the process on their end. Its Deputy Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Mmamiki Kamanakao, is now joining us live. Good morning and thank you so much for making time for us. What's the latest that you can give us in terms of the process in relation to the repatriation of at least the 42 that have been identified?
Yes, thank you so much. Like you are already indicating, there are plans that are underway to repatriate the bodies to Botswana. But as you will appreciate, the South African government, thankfully, has been the ones that have been spearheading all the processes, and we continue to depend on them in terms of repatriating the bodies back to our country. Currently, we are sending families of the remaining 3 bodies for identification, and hopefully in the next few days, we may have all the 45 bodies, and then we will hear from South African government the possible date to repatriate them to Botswana.
So is the intention to repatriate all 45 and not have them repatriated in groups? Because at least 42, as we say, have already been identified.
The intention is to repatriate all the 45 if there are no complications for the remaining 3 bodies, because the families of those will be leaving this morning to South Africa. And depending on the outcome today, we are intending to work with the South African government and ensure that all the 45 are repatriated back here home.
Yeah. Are you able to speak to us whether there were any complications in relation to the identification of at least the 42 that we know of? Because South Africa was saying also that they're relying on the Botswana government to bring over the DNA samples that were required.
I will not say much because, as you will appreciate, this is the purview of the police. What I can say is, obviously, because these were transactions that were happening between 2 countries, there would be complications in terms of, doing the DNAs and having to send the DNA samples from Botswana to South Africa and making sure that we observe all the international protocols.
Yeah, because this week will mark a month since the accident had taken place. How are the families doing, Permanent Secretary?
Obviously, the families are under a lot of distress. They are anxious, but you will appreciate that the government has put a very strong support system around the families through the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, where social workers have been allocated to each of the grieving families to be able to give them all the necessary psychosocial support.
Yeah, I can imagine that with some of the deceased, some may be breadwinners, may have been breadwinners. Is there anything that you're able to share with us in terms of how the Botswana government is assisting those families, at least when it comes to the issue around the livelihood?
Yes, when we speak psychosocial support here, we are not just talking counseling. We are also making sure that in terms of the families having bread on the table, we are taking care of that as government, and thankfully with the support of some private sector allies like Choppies and many others that are contributing some food and all the other necessary things that we continue to identify in the homes and we speak with them what the needs of the families are.
Yeah. Understand that Botswana has also what we have in South Africa, the Road Accident Fund. You have a version of the Road Accident Fund in Botswana as well. In this particular case, because the accident happened in South Africa, would the Botswana's Road Accident Fund also, I don't know, be able to assist these families?
I believe that what we call the Motor Vehicle Accident Fund here has to take all the necessary steps once everything has been concluded for them to determine whether or not the families qualify for the fund. I cannot speak for them because I am not very privy of their protocols. What I can assure you is that the Botswana government has put up a fund that is called Motlamedi under our disaster fund committee, which is going to be helping the families in terms of making sure that their loved ones get decent burial.
Yeah. And then also on that particular aspect, the Road Accident Fund in South Africa allows for foreign nationals who were caught in an accident or even died in an accident on South African roads to claim. Has any of the families approached the Botswana government at all to try and to get assistance to help them with the claim?
What the families have approached the Botswana government on is, as you will appreciate, this is a very peculiar situation where we are going to get possibly the certification from South African government, and then the government of Botswana will go to all the necessary places where the families are entitled to make any claims to see if they can make waivers different from where you would, for example, pass on when you are in Botswana. So I believe if there will be any peculiar demands from MVA and insurance companies, the government is committed to talking to those entities to support the families to access whatever entitlements and benefits they are supposed to get from them.
Yeah. Finally, how's Atang doing, the 8-year-old?
How is?
Atang, the 8-year-old who survived. How's she doing?
She is doing very well, and thanks again to the South African government for what they did for her. She is currently also receiving psychosocial support, counseling together with her mom in a safe space, and I saw her 2 days ago. She is just a bubbly, lovely kid, and we believe that over time, as we know that kids are quite resilient, she will be able to heal and possibly be reintegrated with the rest of the family. But of course, we are going to be guided by the family in regards to that.
Well, certainly. Thank you so much for your time. And remember that Atang was actually traveling with her grandmother, and her grandmother also died in that accident. That is Mmamiki Kamanakao, who is with the local government ministry in Botswana.